So in this video, we're going to be discussing different styles of dealing with conflict. And for us, that was a secret struggle because we both came from really different backgrounds and really different upbringings. And as you can tell, we're a little bit opposite, right?
Yes, you're sitting on the left and I'm on the right.
So what was your home life like? What was conflict like in your home? Tell me how your parents dealt with conflict and,
You know what's funny? A lot of the conflict in my home was with us, the kids. We were loud, we yelled, we talked loud. My father sometimes, because we all grew up going to church, we would debate the Bible. And it wasn't a mad debate, but we were all very loud. We talked over each other. No one gave the other person a chance to talk. If you didn't jump in and raise your voice so that you can get part of the conversation, you were not part of the conversation. But it was fun. That's how we lived. It was cool. When my sister and I, we talk on the phone a lot. And probably just since the last couple of years, we don't do it as much, but we always talked loud over each other. She would say what she had to say, I said what I had to say. We weren't fighting. And there were times when we were disagreeing on things, but we talked loud. That's what we did. We were loud people. We talked with our hands, we talked loud, and we loved one another. Whereas in your family,
we loved one another too.
Yes, but you loved each other quietly.
No, we weren't quiet. It's just that, like when your mother disciplined you, though, it was
Boy,
like,
I'm gonna tear your butt up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it sounded harsh.
But
you knew she loved you, but it just sounded harsh.
I never thought it was abusive. I never thought it was harsh. I got what I deserved. But she did use extension cords. She would use a belt, and I would go hide the extension cord and belt, and she would go looking for it when I was doing something I was supposed to. She said, "Boy, go find that extension cord." I said, "Ma, you really don't think I'm gonna go find the extension cord?" Stuff like that. A friend of mine one time told me in school, said, "Listen, when your mother tries to beat you with the belt, grab her around her waist. That way she can't get good leverage and she'll start hitting her legs and she'll stop hitting." Listen, don't do this at home, kids. It's not good. But never for a moment did I ever feel it was child abuse or anything like that. We were loud. We did things very dramatically, and it was cool. I thought it was like that. And I thought my friends in church and school, I thought they were the same way. Now, your family.
My family, we had 5 children in our home, and my mom and dad also raised foster children. So we had a very busy household with kids, and my mom was always looking after other people's kids and stuff. But I can say to this day, and you know this too after you've met my mother, never once in my life, to this day, have I ever heard my mother raise her voice.
It's amazing.
And
it's amazing.
Even if she was frustrated, she never really showed that. Like, she was very controlled as far as she never lost her temper, never lost her cool. So if we were disciplined, she would, not do it out of frustration. I never had a cuff across the face. I was never slapped in the face or anything like that. She would explain why she was disciplining us, and we would get spanked, but it wasn't out of frustration. It wasn't, we had warning, and we had time to process it and think about it in our room. So she was very gentle, wise, loving, patient, and I never heard conflict growing up. I really didn't hear it. So even getting married, go ahead.
You know what's interesting about that? You said she would explain to you, she was very patient. I think that would have hurt me worse than getting beat with a belt. I was like, just get on with it, please. I forgot what grade I was in. I forgot what grade it is in. But anyway, I had to go to the principal's office or something like that. And the principal, whatever happened, it shouldn't have happened. I don't know if I got into a fight with a kid. I don't remember what it was. And the principal sat and explained for 15 minutes why it was the wrong thing to do. I was thinking, please, kill me. I can't take this sermon anymore. I can't take it. I already know what I did wrong. Let's just get it over with so we can get on with life, But anyway, that's cool. And what you said, I just want to reiterate, your mother is amazing. She has She's an amazing listener. She has a gift of listening.
She has her PhD in listening.
Oh, man. And she's amazing with that. When I sit and talk with her, I feel like I've been in a major counseling session and she never gave advice. She just listened, but I'm sorry. I could.
So, no, it's all right. So we had different styles of dealing with conflict because, and that was an issue. It was a secret struggle because you were very loud and I was very quiet, and I didn't like conflict and I didn't like confrontation.
Right.
I'm not a person to confront unless I have to,
right.
obviously, but yeah.
And
you always say this, so it's okay. We're being honest on camera. You always said you fought like a lawyer. You fought
right.
to win. I didn't fight to win. I just wanted to resolve it.
Right.
Whereas you were going to fight till you win, and I don't like fighting that style. I'm not a
right.
debater. I don't want to fight,
right.
and I don't necessarily always have to win.
Right.
I just need to know it's okay.
That's an excellent point. I'm glad I forgot about that. I've said that before, and I think it's a good point. Because when I say we fought, I wasn't yelling at her, calling her "you're stupid," or I never did that. It's just that when we had conflict about stuff, my voice would get louder and louder and louder. I don't understand what's going on. And then she would say, "Stop yelling at me." And I go, "I'm not yelling." I didn't think I was yelling. I thought I was just passionate. I don't like
passionately frustrated.
Yeah, I was very frustrated.
So your tone would change too.
Well, my tone would change, and I think my pitch would get higher because we didn't know how to talk to each other. We were different in terms of those types of things. We were struggling in that area. And here's the thing that's really interesting about dealing with different styles of conflict. And what you said is so true. I always felt that if we're going to have conflict, especially if I felt I was right, then there has to be a winner and there has to be a loser.
How often did you feel you were right?
Look, I'm not always right, but I'm never wrong. No, I'm just kidding.
That's what he used to tell me.
Well, I heard someone say
not
that years
right,
ago.
But I'm never wrong.
I heard someone say that. Well, because, I did argue like an attorney. An attorney lines up all the evidence. These are all the reasons why I am right. And these are all the reasons why you are wrong. And if my reasons outweigh your reasons, then I am the clear winner. That's exactly how I saw it all my life. It was never about validating, understanding your perspective. It was about winning and losing. And I promise you, you will never get anywhere in a relationship about winning and losing. I heard someone on TV one time say, someone said, in a relationship, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? I thought that was the craziest thing I ever heard in my life. Because I was thinking, if I'm right, I should be happy. If you're wrong, you should be unhappy. I want to be right and I want to be happy. But that's not going to give you a great relationship. Because even though you may be right about something, a lot of things are open to interpretation and open to perspective. So what's right for you may not be right to another. So let's give you an example. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for instance, and this really didn't happen, but let's give an example. Let's say you and I, we go to a concert.
So this is a fake story.
This is a fake story.
Okay.
Let's say we go to a concert, because we really don't go to concerts, but we maybe went to one or two.
We're always at a concert.
Well, yeah, it's mine and yours. Let's say we go to a concert, and I want to stay, and you want to leave early, but I want to stay. So now I decide to leave with you, and I get a little attitude. It's a little cool because you wanted to leave early. So now a day goes by. I'm a little crusty. We're not really talking. And then finally, we do talk about it. Now, the way that I would normally argue about that, because you may feel, why am I mad? Why are you mad, Alvin? I just wanted to leave early. Well, now I'm going to line up the evidence. The evidence is we agreed to go to the concert. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. The evidence is we paid money to go to the concert. Is that correct? Correct. So then when I paid money, I didn't pay for a portion of the concert. I paid for the whole entire concert. So for us to not pay for the whole entire concert, why did we even go to the concert? Well, you may say, well, I was just getting tired. But now my evidence again would say, but you knew we were going to a concert. So how come you didn't get some rest? Now that sounds kind of mean, right? I mean, even when I think about it now, it sounds a little mean because all my facts took out compassion. All my facts took out her perspective. All my facts took out your understanding. All my facts took out being a loving husband. So instead of debating the fact of how much I paid for the ticket, and we knew it took us a long time to find parking, and we had to find a babysitter, and the blah, 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 blah. Instead of that, it's better to say, are you okay? Is everything all right? I'm just tired. I didn't even realize that it was going to be this long. And before you know it, you've alleviated a problem. Mm-hmm. So the worst way to do it is the way that I used to do it. And honestly, I didn't know that I was doing it the wrong way. I really didn't know. I thought that if you have all the facts lined up, science will say it's right. H2O gives you water. H2O, that formulation will always give you water. So that is the facts. But you know what? In relationship, we're dealing with emotions. We're dealing with different styles and different experiences. So,
and whatever your background was, chances are you are going to use that type of have that style of dealing with conflicts in your relationship today. But the important thing is to develop skills that work for your relationship, not how your parents did it, not how your friends do it, but what works for you. Because, if you were married to someone else, maybe you could yell at each other and be fine.
Right.
Because you and your sister are very loud like that, and it's fine. Or if I was married to someone else, it wouldn't even really maybe be a conflict because we'd have quieter styles or whatever. Again, we're just giving examples. So you've got to find the right style of dealing with conflict that works for your relationship and that doesn't harm or hurt each other.
Now, the opposite of that is people who are avoidant in their style.
That's not good either.
I know a couple who never fought, never argued, never had a conflict.
Never say their truth.
They never said their truth. And in the meantime, they lost all intimacy. They didn't want intimacy anymore. I believe he had some outside relationships that may have gone on. I'm not sure how serious they were. I know a little bit of it, but that's not really the point. The point I'm making is the other side is avoidant. When you're avoidant and you don't talk about things, that is a destroyer of a relationship as well.
So you have to find ways to say your truth and be honest with your spouse, but in ways that are not harmful to the marriage.
Can we talk about, which I think it just hit me when you said that, some of the ways to do that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, here's some of the ways to do it. Let's say it's hard to talk about it. I think a perfect example of something that we have done even recently. There are times when Joy and I have had conflict.
Or disconnect
or we're disconnected, we still give loving texts to each other.
Yeah.
We will always, and our texts will always have hearts and kissy faces and blah, blah, blah. Every now and then I'll throw a blue heart showing that, I'm
You're
sad.
You're a little blue.
Yeah, So if you have to.
And then I send a violin back.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Yeah, then we get home, we won't talk to each other, but the texts are wonderful. No, I'm
very
just kidding.
loving.
Yeah. So find ways of getting past it. Another thing you might want to do, and this is one of the things that Joy and I did, we would read certain books together. Should we name some of the books we read? One of the books, it's been out for years, and you find what works for you. There's a book, Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus, and we would read the books together and find out, because it would help her discover how I thought, help me discover how she thinks, and would give us the words, because sometimes I didn't know how to express what I felt. And we'll still do that today.
Right. Another thing you've done is if we're a little edgy with each other, and we can't talk about it yet because we don't have the words to express ourselves yet, I love a good foot massage, and I didn't realize you were doing this. But if I was a little bit upset and we're sitting on the sofa and the TV's on or something, he'd start rubbing my foot.
Oh, it works every time.
Yeah, because it works every time, because now he's feeling my emotional love tank. He's filling that up with love. So I'm feeling loved. I know that he still loves me. It brings a connection to us. And eventually we're able to talk about whatever was bothering us, and it doesn't turn into a conflict, really. It doesn't turn into anything too much, because it's important, if you're having conflict, fill each other's love tanks however you can. Maybe in other ways. Maybe your husband has a favorite meal. Maybe you're in some kind of conflict. Make his favorite meal. Still do physical things and things that will fill the love tank to show respect and love to the other person. So when you've got to deal with that difficult situation, your love tanks are full. You feel loved and you know you're safe. So now you can discuss it without it becoming inflamed.
Yeah. I used to hear, and you may have heard it too, for years, there's a scripture in the Bible that says, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. And I always thought that meant you have to resolve every situation before you go to bed that night. But there are some situations that can't be resolved that night. What that scripture means is don't be angry. Don't be venomous. Don't be unforgiving. Even if you don't understand each other, make sure that you know that you love each other.
Right.
If a person is a physical touch person, make sure that you touch them. You might just touch their foot with your foot in the bed.
It's very cold, but
it might not be. Just might be barely touching, but let them know that you. We're laughing because that's probably happened to us.
You should tell them about when we were first married. The hovering.
The hovering.
The hovering.
Well, because Joy would always hold my hand. We'd hold each other's hand all the time. And when we
still do a lot.
And we still do. And when Joy would get angry at something that I didn't do,
because you're always right,
never wrong. Joy. So you can see our hand. So Joy would normally we'd be holding hands like this and whatever, but when Joy was mad, she would hover. So like this would be her hand. Can you see our hands? Her hand would be like just. You could put a piece of paper between it. So her hand is still there, but there's not a whole lot of pressure on it. It's very, very, very light. And I'm thinking, you know what? Either do it with passion or take your hand away. No, really, I was just happy she did that, because if she didn't do it, then I'd really think, oh my God, something's wrong badly here. So I just think that with the different styles of doing things, because you have to know the other person's rhythm. You have to know the other person's their style. And
I had to learn too that even when you get louder, your heart isn't loud.
That's a good point. My heart was.
Your mouth is very loud.
Well, I see.
But your heart wasn't loud.
Yeah, no, not at all.
But it felt very loud. So again, as you,
I feel very. When we're disconnected, or if we've had a falling out on something, I feel like smothered. I feel like
smothered.
Like I want to not physically die, but I feel like I can't breathe. I feel like I don't want to. And not that I want to die, but I don't want to live in this kind of way. I want us to stay connected. I don't want to. But the problem is in relationships is that we don't know how to get there. And so. I was alluding to, and I kind of lost track, don't let the sun go down in your wrath, but that doesn't mean that we're going to solve all of our problems.
Right.
Because we don't know how.
Right.
And there are some problems, listen to this, and this is very important. When we studied relationship coaching in 2016 for that year, that there are unsolvable problems. Now you may say, well, God can solve every problem. Yes. Certain things that sound good in a sound bite,
we have a will.
Yeah, well, we have a will, and I'll give you an example of an unsolvable problem. An unsolvable problem may be, let's say, I worked. When I say unsolvable problem, it may not be solved yet, or it may never be solved. Let's say I'm a police officer, and we get married, and being a police officer is more and more dangerous. And you're saying, I want you to quit the force. We have a fight about, me quitting the force. Well, I'm not going to quit the force tomorrow. So that problem is not going to be solved tomorrow. And it's not going to be because I'm thinking at that time, I'm thinking about we have a mortgage, we have car payment, we got to feed the kids. I am not going to quit the force. So that problem at that moment is an unsolvable problem. Here's the beautiful thing, though, about unsolvable problems, is that many times as we continue to personally grow, and as I continue to fill your love tank, and you realize how much I care about you, but I'm dealing with a conflict, the unsolvable problem goes away. Mm-hmm. I may still be a police officer. You're still going to love me and be concerned about my safety. But we're going to realize we're in this thing together. Mm-hmm. And we're going to pray for God's best. But I don't want to fight anymore about you,
And maybe through that my faith grows.
Absolutely.
I trust God more.
Absolutely.
So again, some of those things can cause us to grow as well through those things.
So don't let the sun go down your wrath, but that doesn't mean the problems are going to be solved. Mm-hmm. Well, I think people get the picture. I can think of a million different reasons.
Yes, you can.
But I think people get the picture of it. The most important thing is to be very, very aware of your different styles, mm-hmm. because that's the thing that can very much cause the destruction mm-hmm. of what could have been a good, loving, mm-hmm. joyful, peace-filled relationship.
Right. So you've lowered your level a bit. I've raised mine.
Can I tell them what God told me about you?
I don't know what he told me. I don't know.
He said, lay hands on it. No. I'm going to tell them. Okay, if this doesn't work.
I guess. I don't know.
If she doesn't want me to tell her.
I'll be hovering.
You won't hear it because I'll be editing it out and she'll be hovering. The Lord spoke to me one time. I really believe the Lord spoke to me. I didn't hear a voice, but a prompting that said, and this was in the very beginning of our relationship especially, it was the very beginning, and said, I want you to baby her. Remember when I told mm-hmm. you that?
I do.
I had no idea what the Lord was talking about. Baby her. Like Gucci, goo, goo, gaga. What that meant was, don't treat her like she's your sparring partner. Don't treat her like she's one of the guys. Don't treat her like she is, your equal when it comes to war. Treat her gently. That doesn't mean that Joy is not a strong woman. Joy is a very strong and a very accomplished woman. But I think what the Lord was saying when I look back in retrospect, we would have probably avoided some of the intense fellowship that we had if I did have a better understanding. And I think what the Lord was doing, the Lord was giving me a glimpse of what I needed to learn. And then I think I did begin to learn it. Mm-hmm. But I didn't understand in the beginning. So I think that sometimes we do get promptings in our spirit about things. And when we get those promptings, it's up to us to further investigate, to read, to pray, to study, to be around other people who are in good relationships. Because I think that's one of the problems. I think one of the problems is we don't know relationships. We don't know how to have good conflict because many of us have not seen it modeled.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes we can seek God and he will give us wisdom. He'll put a prompting there. Or other times he'll lead us to resources.
Yeah.
Really good resources. Like a lot of times you didn't know what to do because, you just didn't know. You didn't maybe have some of the skills, but God would lead you to a book.
Yeah.
That would just explain it better than I could explain it to you.
Yeah.
And so just seek God and he'll lead you to the right sources and he'll drop wisdom into your spirit.
I have to tell this. I know that I don't know how long this is getting, but I have watch this in bits and pieces if you have to. But you said God give you the right resources. Joy and I were having some, conflict.
It sounds like that's all we've had is conflict.
Well, I think every marriage goes into what they call the power struggle phase. There's a power struggle.
We do know that from the Relationship Institute.
And during that time, in that some years ago, we went through the power struggle, and I didn't understand some of Joy's.
Because there's different struggles. There's different steps in relationships, and there is a power struggle stage of becoming one.
And in some of our future programs, we're going to be talking about some of those different stages that you're in, so that way you can understand that what you're going through might be normal. Mm-hmm. And I didn't understand certain things. Again, we come from different backgrounds, different ways of dealing with things. And I don't know how I got my hands on this book. I have no idea how I got my hands on this book. But the book was all about validation. I had no idea what validation meant in a relationship. I've never even heard the word validation in terms of a relationship. I've heard of getting my parking ticket validated, but I never heard about validation in a relationship. And when I first read the book, because I was seeking God and saying, God, I don't, we're having some struggle in this area. I'm not sure how to explain to Joy how I feel, and I'm not, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know what she's feeling. And I don't know how I got my hands on this book. I have no idea. I don't know if I got it in my Kindle or whatever it was. But when I first read the book, and I'm not going to go into a lot of that because we'll probably talk about validation at another time. When I first read the book, I almost threw it down because I was thinking like, they don't even understand. But I picked it back up, and by the time I finished reading that book, it gave me an essential tool that I needed to be able to understand Joy, and I think Joy to better understand me. Joy had a better idea of validation than I did. I had none. But it gave me the opportunity to be able to now have conflict with Joy if we had conflict. And not that we had conflict, all the time, but every couple goes through different disagreements, different ways of thinking.
But that's our topic. So
but it was huge. The validation is huge. And we'll talk about this on another on another video at some other time. But it was probably the number one thing that helped us in dealing with conflict of things. And I think it absolutely changed my life. I think if I had not read that book, I don't know how it got to me. I don't know how. I know I bought it, but I don't even know why I would buy a book called Validation. They must have been
You just like books.
They must have been promising, free peanuts or French fries. I don't know why, but anyway. But for me, it is the single most important thing that helped us
conflict,
with dealing with conflict, because we were both
learning
different.
how to validate.
Yeah, because I honestly thought that when you were saying that I was yelling at you, I'm saying I'm not that kind of guy. How dare she say that I'm like that, And I realized that because our voice pitches, and then my voice is more resonant than yours and that kind of thing. So it gave me total understanding, and it was a God thing. So when you said, ask God to help you, He'll give you promptings, He'll lead you to stuff. I promise you He will, if you keep your heart and mind open and you really want to serve the person that you love. Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. On to the next secret struggle.